So, hello everybody. I hope you guys are doing well. I this is going to be fun for both of us, hopefully. I get to play a little game of Sam read books in February, but does she actually remember anything that she read? I have barely finished books in the last, I would say, 2 weeks. I ended up working 103 hours, which is a lot for me. So, I have not been reading nearly as much as I would love to. You might have noticed there was no March TBR. There's not going to be. I will, at the end, loosely talk about the things that I want to get to. But I just don't have the spoons, the energy, the time. Daylight savings has kicked my butt already. Like, it's... like, we're not doing good right now. We're gonna chat about the 13 technically books that I read in February, but we're also gonna talk about my first March read because I read 50% like the beginning, or at the end of February, beginning of March. So we're gonna talk about that too, just because I can. And we're gonna have a fun time. I'm gonna try not to make this super long. I think that won't be too hard because, again, a lot of these books I don't really have a lot to say on, but overall, just my reading in general has been pretty, how do you say, boring and basic and tiring. Like, it's a mix of like burnout, but not from like YouTube and reading, but from my life and burnout. So picking up books, sitting down to focus on a book is not where I'm at right now. But I still enjoy listening to the audiobook here and there. I'm starting to listen to more at work. We are a month away from the end, basically. We're gonna get there soon. We're gonna make it. It's gonna be great. But let's just jump in. You're here for the books. Let's talk about the books. The first thing that I read was a dud. I only read this because I was like trying to be cool in the book community and I wanted to participate in Gabby, her book troop, book club. I wanted to be in it. I wanted to participate. I wanted to read the book. I wanted to read my first Gillian Flynn. So I read Dark Places. And I don't think this is good. I don't, like, it's dark, it's gritty, it's a thriller mystery, and it's got a lot of promise to it, but it was so boring. It felt very juvenile for how dark and disturbing the story was. This is about a young girl who is running out of money. She's down on her luck. She has been getting by in the world just by selling her story. Her brother was convicted for the murder of her parents and siblings. I think there was multiple siblings involved. And so he's in jail and she's basically like going on podcasts and talk shows and like making money from appearances, and that is running dry. Obviously, the fast fashion of true crime, if you will, is, depleting. Like, it's not always a sensational story that sticks around for many, many years. Like, eventually you get your name in the sun, like you're the spotlight, and then suddenly the world stops caring and the next story is popular. So I don't think that's what this was about, but that was an interesting, beginning setup. Then she goes to this group and they're like, yeah, we'll pay you. And they're a bunch of college kids that just like to debate and or try to solve mysteries or something, but they don't believe her brother committed this crime. And she's starting to reconcile with the idea of like, what if she was coerced by the police to say these things because her brother was like a delinquent child. That's that's the setup. And so from there, she decides that she's going to build a relationship with her brother again and try to get him out or something. But the direction that the story went was honestly bad, boring, unsatisfying, upsetting, annoying, just all of the bad things. I just did not like this. I did not like the twists that were going on. I didn't like the God, I've just remembered the other part of the twist. It's so bad. It was so stupid. It didn't make sense. There was no logic to any of it. It was just bad. I just did not have a good time. I gave it 2.5 stars. I don't think that this means Gillian Flynn is a bad writer. She's obviously like that girl of successful mystery thriller writers because she's got movies and she's very popular. I think she's the author of Gone Girl. Don't know. This one didn't work for me. I don't know if that's this author issue situation or just this book. It doesn't seem like this book is like the general favorite of hers, but I will say definitely check the trigger warnings. It is dark and gritty and like kind of gross, especially for me, the parts where it's a lot of flashbacks and current day and like different perspectives of like what's going on and what led to the events. But my biggest thing was like, we're talking about children and teenagers and horrific things that have happened, but also there was a lot of like sexual relationships with a young boy, and I was like, this is a teen. this is a little too graphic for me, and I wouldn't say it's like super graphic. It's not like trying to get you excited or anything, but I was just like, ooh, this is a child, and I don't really want that. So moving on to the only book I physically read this month, which was Red Rising, and technically this was my like January pick, but we had the discussion in February. I'm queen of setting a date and being like, I have to read this discussion book the day of or like the day before, and I'm doing that again with Golden Sun. Like, I've set the date for March 12th for the Golden Sun live show discussion with me and my friends to talk about the second book in the Red Rising series. And we're doing a read along this year. It's been fun so far. I'm really enjoying the series. I've already like had a great time with Red Rising. We'll get to it. I haven't touched Golden Sun. It hasn't happened. I have 3 days to read it, so we'll see how that happens for me. But oh, I gotta stop doing this. I gotta start reading things ahead of time and be better. But it's fine. It's cool. It's okay. But Red Rising is a dystopian sci-fi novel written by Pierce Brown. Very popular, very famous. There's, I want to say, 6 books out right now. Red God is the 7th book, final book in the whole series, and is said to be out in 2026. So we're a little bit early on our read along, but I also want to do like a full, probably 3-hour just recap talking about the whole series once we finish all of our rereads. So I'm very excited to see where the series is going to go. Red Rising is following Darrow, who is a red, and we're learning about the oppression of the Reds and how they have been completely misled, thinking that they are making Mars habitable for the rest of Earth because Earth is dying and they've got to get these minerals and everything so that more people can join them. That illusion is broken pretty fast, and Darrow goes under a big transformation and is infiltrating the higher golds of the hierarchy. And I just think it's so fun. The first book really has a Hunger Games kind of style to it because there's this school for the golds where you can kind of get placed in different houses, and it's just got that Hunger Games like kill or be killed type of mentality. But it also kind of reminds me of Lord of the Flies in the sense of just like, what will people do when given the opportunities? I love Red Rising. This was my second time reading it, but it's just one that I enjoy discussing. It's one that I like to analyze and look into. It's just good. I definitely, as the series goes on, they feel more adult, but this one still has like a pretty decent YA feel. But every once in a while you're like, this feels adult, and then it's like, oh, but he's a teenager and he's still a child, and you're like, wait, oh, wait, this is technically YA. So, anywho, moving on. Red Rising, loved it, had a great time. I'm so excited to continue. The next thing that I listened to was Beautyland, written by Marie Helen Bertino. And Allie, if you're watching this, I love you. Please, I'm sorry. I really wanted to like this. Allie from Allie Do Is Read really loves this. And so I was like, well, if she's going to give it a high rating, I've got to check it out. I've got to see what it's all about. I really enjoyed Annie Bot, and that was another one that she really enjoyed last year. And so I listened to this. And this one is classified as sci-fi, but it's not. It's very literary, which is fine, but it's very coming of age in a weird girl lit fic kind of way. She thinks that she's an alien. This girl, our protagonist, she believes that she's an alien and that this like fax machine is how she's communicating with her homeland. And she's like talking about what humanity is like and what being human is like. And it's a lot of like the small little moments, cute little details of like, yeah, humans are weird. Like, if you just dumb us down into the simplest of forms, like, we are just cute little creatures that do really silly things, and it's very fun. Overall, I didn't think the story was necessarily bad, but since I did not connect with our character and we're really with her the whole time, I wasn't super invested in what was happening, where it was going to go, any of the things, and the ending kind of felt underwhelming. I kind of wish that we had a little bit more direction throughout the story and just a little bit something for me to grasp onto with the plot. Again, this is really focused on the character and just like what the author was trying to say, and I think that she achieved her goal, whatever message she was trying to get out there, whatever she was trying to write. I think that's what she did. I just didn't have maybe the proper expectations going into it because I didn't know a lot about this, and it's not necessarily the type of book that I would typically pick up. So it's not bad. A lot of people really enjoyed it. So it's very like, you know, hard to say like who the audience is necessarily going to be for me, but like I didn't love it. Alright, this next one, I think we might be here for a little bit, so I hope you're prepared. No spoilers, of course, but like I just need to really talk this one out. I got an arc. Thank you, Helen. Thank you, publisher, whoever accepted me, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I am so thankful for being given an arc of a book that I'm so excited for and not getting it through NetGalley. That was very exciting for me. This is the first time I've gotten an arc like from directly a publisher or author, and so they gave me the e-arc and I read it a little bit close to publishing date because I got the audiobook on Hoopla the day before release, so I was a little bit ahead of the game. But Iron and Embers is the spin-off series to, oh my god, I'm blanking on the name, this is so embarrassing, the Legend of Thesmar series, starting with Blood and Steel. I was gonna get there eventually. So this is the Ashes of Thesmar. This is following Ren, who is Thea's sister in the first series. And I was so excited. This one has so many like tropes and buzzwords that I was so excited about. We've got alchemy, we've got academia, we've got a bodyguard romance. It's kind of giving Harry Potter. If you're familiar with like the alchemy scenes with the screaming plant thing, I'm clearly not a big Potterhead. It's a deadly school. It was kind of giving Hogwarts for adults, but like not in a positive way, unfortunately. I was really excited about a academic setting for Ren where she could learn about alchemy and poisons and everything, and having a lot of dangers coming from the school itself and like the students, and being cutthroat and like really trying to get those top positions or whatever, and like having like rivalries and whatnot. And it didn't really deliver on that. This is definitely a romance with fantasy book, whereas I would say Blood and Steel is pretty even with the romance and fantasy. Like there's so much world building happening there, there's like a war going on, there's a lot of danger, and you're still getting those tender sweet moments, but you're also getting a lot of side characters. Like it just felt more fleshed out, whereas Iron and Embers felt like fan favor. It felt like, let me give you their romance. It just kind of happened. I didn't have anything to attach to. It makes me so upset. I didn't like the characters that much. Like, they were kind of bland. They were kind of boring. They were just, like, there to get it on. And I was like, yeah, I like them. I love them as characters. They were so fun to be back with. I was so excited. But the side characters were lacking, and the side characters that we still got were carryovers from the series. So it was kind of like, hey, just remember this is the same world. Remember, it's the same characters. Like, you still love these characters, so like let me remind you that you have an attachment to them so that you enjoy this too. And it just didn't work that way, and it's really a disappointment. I think that the like external threat wasn't really described very well and wasn't like explained. And again, I think there was just a lack of world building, a lack of stakes, a lack of just having something more than will they, won't they romance that just kind of by the end. Now, I say all this. It sounds like a lot of heavy critiques. I gave it 4 stars because the elements that I loved, I really, really enjoyed. I did really like the glimpses of the school that we got. I liked slowly getting to know the new characters. I wish that we had more of them. I wish there was just less emphasis on the romance. And maybe that's my own problem because, yeah, I love romantasy, but I need it to be more balanced. I need equal romance pining and a sex scene or two versus a lot of world building and fantasy elements and like stakes and like actual things happening. I need more of that in my romantasy, and so I like a more balanced mix rather than just romance with a backdrop of fantasy, you know? Which I know is technically like what romantasy is. Nobody can agree, so I don't know. But I was just like, I just wanted so much more. It was just disappointing because I'm such a fan of the first series. I wanted to love this so bad that it was hard for me to give it a lower rating than 4. Not because I was gifted the arc, but just because I do love these characters and I do love this world, and I'm clinging on so strongly to the Legend of Thesmar that it's influencing my rating of the Ashes of Thesmar, even if I'm very perplexed on how I feel. Like, I don't know. It's very, it's hard for me. It's hard for me to be like, I don't love it still, because I do love it, but like, it's not as good, and it doesn't live up to the same expectations. And I also should have mentioned much earlier, but you need to read The Legend of Thesmar before you get into this. Like, I think you should. I don't think that it's a standalone series. I don't think that that would work at all. I don't know how long we just talked about that, but it maybe was too long, and I don't know if I actually made any coherent sense. So we're gonna move on to the next romantasy that I read, which was Servant for Earth. No, I think it's Servant of Earth. I think I wrote it wrong. And this is by Sarah Hawley. Now, a lot of people have talked about this book. It's kind of got like a weird little spike. I don't think it's like super popular, but a lot of people were talking about it for like a short period of time. And so I was excited to get my hold from Libby. And I don't disagree with the general feeling of, yeah, this feels like a classic romantic-y book. Like, it doesn't necessarily do anything new. It's not super duper special and unique, but I still really enjoyed it, actually. I had a lot of fun. We start in this small little village where they send specific girls that get picked by the Fae into the forest, and they're never heard or seen from again. And our protagonist, whose name I don't remember, so she was a little generic, her best friend gets chosen, and she's like, that's not what I wanted from this. I don't agree with anything that's going on here, and I'm going with you, actually. So they both go into the forest, and she makes it to the other side. She makes it to the Fae, and she believes that her friend is dead, along with the other girls that were chosen, but somehow she, like, got through. She ends up at the Fae Kingdom? I'm not really sure, now that I'm trying to explain it, what the ecosystem of this world is really like, but she ends up with the Fae, and she is placed with House of Earth, and she is a servant for their heir, the heir of the Earth House thing. And basically they have one king ruler who has access to different elemental magics for the houses. The houses: air, earth, fire, water, void, and light, I believe. Like shadow and light. I did enjoy it. We get to see the Fae and their lifestyle. It's very lavish and very royal. They also do trials and competitions, and so we get to participate as a human, helping the heir of House of Earth try to, like, get through, because they're basically like, I don't know, she's going to be able to succeed and make it very well, so you, human, are going to help her with the trial. So I thought that was a fun twist on it, rather than, like, her being in the trial specifically. It's like her trying to get to know people and kind of find answers on, like, what the trials are going to be and how she can help and assist, and, like, being a part of it while still, like, being in the background and the backdrop as a servant. I thought that was very fun. I thought that was different. I did actually enjoy that. I love a trial in books to begin with, so, like, having it from a, like, oh, well, let's find the backdoor entries into it, and, like, let's see how I can assist, but also not get caught, because, like, I'd be killed. I enjoyed that. I like the stakes of that. I like the romantic interests in this. There was, I would say, 2 strong potential leads. I'm a simple girl. I liked the main guy that we were following with and involved with. They were charming. They were sweet. I really enjoyed the moment. I do have one critique with the first instance of heavy romance in this being sort of under the influence of magic type of situation. Like, it's kind of a little bit non-con, but I can still, like, excuse it and forgive it, because it was more like pulling their desires and what they wanted out and kind of forcing the romance to happen sooner. But then they continue on, and, like, it is sweet. But that was my one, like, little, like, I don't love that in this, but it wasn't as bad as I've seen in other books, so it wasn't, like, the biggest of concerns for me. But the big thing in this is the tyranny of the king, and I was reading this, and it was very fun to be like, oh wow, imagine a world where a ruler rises in the ranks and has just absolute control over everything, and how terrifying that is, and how, yeah, maybe we should overthrow some people in power. That's crazy. So I do, yeah. it's always so funny, people that are like, reading isn't political, and reading fantasy or reading romance isn't actually, like, true reading because girls and misogyny and whatnot. And it's like, okay, yeah, I'm also reading about, like, overthrowing the government. What do you mean? Like, I feel pretty, like, checked in and in tune with, like, what's going on around me. So thank you. Yeah, reading does not give power whatsoever, and that's why we're banning books right now, because reading is not important, and no one's benefiting from reading. That's crazy talk. Anyway. Oh, many discussions to come on this channel once tax season is over, I am sure. I'm boiling from the inside out of what's going on around us. But moving on, let's just jump into the next thing. I listened to The Will to Change by Bell Hooks. This is nonfiction. This is talking about feminism, and definitely more focused on the, like, men's perspective, what's the word? More so talking about, like, the life of being a man, and I guess toxic masculinity is, like, the new term that we've coined for it. recently where it's just like, well, yeah, men go through things too, and they're not given room to, like, say, cry and feel their emotions. And so it definitely talked about things like that. And I don't think this is a bad nonfiction. I think this is quite good. I think that it was maybe not the right time for me to be reading it, just, and so when you're busy with work, it's a little bit hard to digest everything that you're taking in. But overall, I did enjoy this. I think that it was well organized, well paced, well written, well, whatever, insert correct terms here. I hate rating nonfiction. It's very hard for me to talk about, but I did think this was good. I didn't think this was revolutionary to me. I don't, it's embarrassing and, like, weird for me to be like, actually, like, whatever I read in this nonfiction, I actually, like, already knew, and I'm actually, like, really smart, and I'm not trying to be that, because I hate that, but at the same time, sometimes you read a nonfiction. Like, I read Ace last month, and, like, it wasn't new information for me. So, I just need to keep reading in the topics that I'm interested in, keep finding things. But I do think this was good. I think that I would recommend this to a lot of people, especially men. Yes, that was The Will to Change. I did like it. I do recommend it highly. I think a lot of people should read it. I think a lot of people won't read it, but I think those are the people that really should. So, yeah. Anywho, next thing, so fun. I read a romance. I read a young adult romance. I read Dating and Dragons. This is a companion book, I suppose, to Dungeons and Drama, which I much more preferred. That was the first book. I really enjoyed Riley in that one. I enjoyed her getting to know, like, this group of D&D players because her dad owned a game store where they would play. I love that setup. And then coming into Dating and Dragon, I was like, oh, a new girl at the school is going to join their little club. No, these characters don't know each other at all. Or at least I'm dumb, but I didn't even feel like we got a cameo. Like, how do you call this a companion if I don't get to see the same characters? Like, that was a little upsetting for me. Maybe I missed it. Maybe I'm just dumb and I don't remember all the characters from when I read the first book a year ago. But it didn't have the same feel to it. I did enjoy this one, though. I still liked it. I think this has definitely more of, like, a, hey, this is a thing that's very popular. Let's talk about a Dungeons and Dragon podcast, and let me also explain to you the terms of Dungeons and Dragons. It definitely felt more like, let me walk you through this game, because I don't think everybody that reads these books is gonna, like, have too much knowledge on Dungeons and Dragons like I do, because hyperfixation is fun. But I did really think it was sweet the way that the new girl, finds her way into this group. I really loved her grandma. Her grandma was truly the main star of this book. She was incredible. It was so fun. I think that the drama of it and, like, the internal conflicts our character was dealing with honestly could have been a little bit more developed, a little bit, like, higher stakes, just a little bit more serious maybe. But overall, I did enjoy this. Again, the grandma was the showstopper, and I did really enjoy the leads because they were like, ugh, there's a rule that we can't date, but also we're, like, secretly kind of dating, and there was, like, a little snippet of a fake dating for a second. It just had a lot of cute moments. I don't know if this author is, like, super, like, rememberative of what being a teenager was really like, because there was definitely some words that were said by teens that I was like, they would never say that, they wouldn't talk like that. But overall, it was fun. I really did enjoy it. Datings and Dragons was very fun, very cute. The next thing I read was Deep End by Ali Hazelwood, and oh boy, howdy. I read this one in I feel like I posted a vlog during this craziness, but it's very hard for me to remember, to be honest. I think I've already talked about Deep End on my channel, but if you hadn't seen that, Deep End by Ali Hazelwood is about a girl who is a diver and a boy who's an Olympic swimmer, and they kind of cross paths because of mutual friends in the team. They're in Stanford. He is Swedish, I believe, which is so fun. The audiobook had dual narrators, even though we are following one perspective the entire time. Whenever the lead had lines, he would say them in her chapters and, like, speak them. I'm a sucker for a man speaking to me with an accent. I'm sorry. Is he actually Swedish? I don't know, but I enjoyed every second of him talking. So that's that. Anyways, this was cute. This was sweet. This is definitely, like, trying to focus a little bit more on, like, the BDSM, like, kinkier side of a sexual relationship. But also, like, this man has no flaws. He's definitely a perfect book boy written by a woman, and it feels that way the entire time. He's obviously so big, so strong, so tall. But my biggest thing was like he had no flaws at all. Like he was so perfect. He just like fully understood our character by looking at her. He could just read her like an open book. He like knew the depths of her soul. And as much as I loved that, there's just something so special about being so intimately known by somebody. So for that, like, nailed it, crushed it, loved that. But he had no flaws. Like, I needed a little bit more personality from him. Our main character, her whole conflict the entire book is this guy is so so tough to get to know, when he's so open and honest, and honestly like sometimes a little too blunt about things, that I was like, she's telling me things that just aren't true, that I'm not seeing. Also, her only like big internal conflict was, I'm dating this guy, but I can't tell this girl, and also that she's getting over an injury. And I do think that's interesting. I do think that's important to talk about. But also overall, like, I feel like she could have more depth to her. She could have been a little bit more fleshed out, just because I understand that getting over an injury and having like the mental hurdle is important, but like you can already feel it's like, oh, he's gonna fix her, he's gonna make her all better. And I don't know, I just wanted more from her. So I really enjoyed it. Maybe it doesn't sound like it. I did really like it. I enjoyed the conversations around consent and having boundaries, and like really openly talking about what you want in a relationship when it comes to your sexual life, because that is important to a lot of people. I certainly think that Ali Hazelwood knows how to write on a topic, and I think she does her research before jumping into them. But overall, like, it was good, but not like as good as some other ones that I've read. But I'm in the minority in this, I think, because a lot of people are loving this. They're eating this one up. So I definitely implore you to try it if you're interested in it. Oh, the next thing that I read, I think I also talked about in my vlog. So we'll be a little bit quick. But I finished the Poison Heart duology. I finished This Wicked Fate by Kaylin Barron. This one was strange. It felt very different from the first book, and I, for a really long time was like, it's me, because it's been multiple years since I read the first book, so it must be me just forgetting some things, but I remember the characters well. But I was like, this book feels different, and I didn't realize how strong the ties to Greek mythology were going to be. And I don't think that's necessarily a con. It was just like me being like, whoa, this is a thing, this is happening. I just felt a little shocked, but overall I liked it. But it was kind of long and drawn out for not a good reason, and you know exactly when the book starts, where the book is going to end, and how it's going to wrap up. So I was kind of like, what's the point of reading a book if you know how it's going to go? Like, there was nothing in it that surprised me, nothing that made me go, wow, didn't see that coming. Like, it just, everything was like, yep, of course, absolutely, no surprise. I wanted more from it. I just wish that there was like a better way to really wrap up a story, make it more interesting, make it more engaging. I loved the plant magic, the botancy or whatever you want to call it, but I thought the plant magic was really cool. It very had that, like, wow, I'm talking too much, I'm losing brain cells. I really enjoyed the plant magic in this. I thought that it was very fun. I wish that we got to see a lot more of it like we did in the first book. I feel like it was just underutilized a little bit. And overall, I think that the people who absolutely love the first book and read these close together are going to have a really good time. I think that if you're like me and you start a book and you remember good enough about it, and then you move on and then you jump back into the world, it's not going to have the same hard-hitting effects, unfortunately. But it wasn't bad. It just was underwhelming. Okay, the next one that I read was such a tone shift from everything else that I've read. I listened to Anywhere You Run by Wanda M. Morris. This is the prequel book to follow All Her Little Secrets. I always struggle with that, which was a Literally Dead book club pick 2 years ago or something like that. And I really enjoyed that one. It's following like a lawyer, and her brother's in trouble, and she's gotta, solve the case and like prove the innocence and whatever. And it was very like tense and dramatic and like on the edge of your seat type of thing. Very, very different pacing, very different story, very different feelings to Anywhere You Run. So I wouldn't say that it's like, oh yeah, they're in the same world, we're following the same family, like it's the same. Simply could not be further from the truth. Anywhere You Run is set in the Jim Crow Mississippi South, but eventually they make their way up north to hope and find a better life. But we are following two sisters, Marigold and Violet. they had a sister. Her name was Rose. She's not super prevalent in the book, but she's, mentioned enough. But there's 3 sisters, all named after flowers. Let's go. But we're following Violet at the start, who is trying to run away from the South. She's trying to leave Jackson, Mississippi. I've retained so much knowledge of this book. I'm really impressed with myself. Anyways, she is running away from Mississippi. She is kind of trying to escape a potential crime that was committed. Yeah. So she's got to go. She's a black woman. She cannot be here any longer. She leaves her sister Marigold without saying much. She runs away with this guy named Dewey. She's out of there. But then things don't really quite go as she planned. She runs away alone. She finds herself in different cities and with different people and is trying to, find her footing, trying to figure out where to go next, what to do. While her sister Marigold is left back at home, pregnant, and is trying to figure out, what to do, and also is trying to eventually escape. And it's really just, a story of these 2 women finding their way in life. Marigold's big fight is, she's really trying to get black people the right to, specifically black men, the right to vote, and trying to, make men equal in the eyes of the government and so on. So there's a lot of conversation about racism, obviously. It's kind of hard to avoid if you're setting a book in the Jim Crow South. From there, we're just seeing them fight against racism, fight against oppression, talk about just all of the things while trying to make lives for themselves. It was a very unsettling story, very tense book, but not in a thrilling way. It's just history and the dark side of history that I have known about. I went to a pretty liberal high school, so I was taught about racism and slavery and stuff, but I know that's not necessarily, keep in mind, it's been a while since I've been in school, and I know that there's a lot of conversation, especially in the South, trying to make slavery and the civil rights movement less talked about because, God forbid, somebody sees their grandpa in a photo of white people being insane. So it's, important for these stories to exist so that people can see historical context of what was going on and what things were like. And it's sad, and again, so many words that I don't like being said were said at times, and it just makes you uncomfortable. And I think that's the point. I think it's important for these stories to exist. You gotta be prepared for the tone it's gonna have versus her other thrillers. It's not the same story whatsoever. It has a different focus. But I do think that it ends very nice. I think that it is wrapped up in a way that you would expect. It wasn't plot twist, shocking type of thriller mystery. It was just a historical sadness horror. But I liked it. I think Wanda M. Morris is a very good author. I think she writes very well, and I will be excited to check out her other book. She has 3 books out. I don't remember what it's called, though, but I would like to read it as well. And then after that, I wanted a little bit of a tone shift because I was like, ooh, that was heavy. That was dark. That was a lot to process and take in. So I decided it'd be fun to pick up The Curious Kitchen at the Chibiniko Kitchen? I'm sorry. By Yuta Takakashi. And no, this was just sad. I think I was crying within the first chapter because, a girl gets emotional. Sometimes when you're stressed, you are sad for a little reason, and this one was a lot. It is very much before the coffee gets cold energy. It's all about a kitchen who offers you a last meal with a past loved one, and you can basically reminisce with a meal, and the steam brings back their ghost, I guess, and you can kind of have a final conversation. Very much before the coffee gets cold energy, but with the fun twist of you get some recipes. They tell you how to cook the meals that are prepared. It's very sweet. It sounds delicious if you enjoy food. Unlike me, it was sweet. It wasn't anything crazy. I think there was maybe 4 or 5 short story chapters. I overall enjoyed this. It's not one that's gonna stick with me forever. It doesn't have the same hard-hitting moments before the coffee gets cold, but I don't know, something about translated Japanese fiction with a magical realism grief twist make me want to cry every time. I don't know what it is, but it's just those stories specifically really tug at my heartstrings. I did enjoy this. I thought it was sweet. It's very short and quick, so it's not one that you really have to spend too much time with. It's not you're sitting in the grief forever, but it's still got the light and hope. There was one story about a kid though. That one was brutal. So maybe, check the trigger warnings for each story if certain things aren't an interest for you to read about when it comes to grief and losing people, because some of them are really sad. All right, now last 3, let's go. All horror books, horror thrillers, kind of. The first one being Wake Up and Open Your Eyes by Clay McLeod Chapman. Oh boy, howdy. I think it was Gabby Reeds who gave this like a 3-star, 2.5 star, or something like that, and didn't like super love this. And so I was like, okay, I'm like on the fence about it. I knew that it was basically a book about brainwashing from a news source, Fax News, and the brainwashing that can happen that can turn people, I would say, down an alt-right pipeline. And that is a little close to home for me, so I was definitely a little nervous going into this. But then Katie Colson read it and she was like, it's disgusting but also incredible, and I was like, okay. So I finally decided to pick it up and recommended it to my friend Richie immediately. It does have some gross moments, but it didn't disgust me too much. I think my threshold for horror is a little bit higher than maybe the average person who might not read horror as often, but oh, this one, yeah, like I mentioned, it's a close to home story for me, so it's definitely like, ooh, but it's got that like apocalyptic kind of feel, and the whole thing is like the slogan of like wake up and open your eyes, and it just gets the repetition. The audiobook was incredible. I highly recommend the audiobook. It was a wonderful production, but oh boy, howdy, uncomfy, hard, yeah, like it did exactly what it set out to do, and I think that it was well written. I enjoy this author. I'm very excited to read Ghost Eaters, which seems to be like their best work, but I read the one about the Satanic Panic, which was based off a true story, so I thought that one was good, but I think this one was superior in comparison. But I don't want to talk too much about it because like I don't want to give anything away, but I was going through it while listening to this. It was quite intense, and I really enjoyed it. So, I do think that there are some slow moments to it. I do think that the main characters that we are following due to the events that break out in the story, the guy that we were following and his, I think, nephew, were kind of just like, meh, moments for me. I didn't quite care as much, but I just... oh, yeah. Unsettling. Alright, moving on to the next book, which was Alyssa Cole's newest thriller, One of Us Knows, which is following Ken and her whole system. She has dissociative identity dissociative identity disorder, DID for short, and I think this is a very interesting topic and is very tough to do in a horror thriller sense, because there's always going to be stereotypes and negatively impact the community. So I can't speak on whether this representation was good or not, but there was a moment where I went hyperfixated on DID, and I watched a lot of YouTube videos from people with systems that talked about it, and so I had some knowledge going into it, like what people have explained it being like. So it wasn't like a shocking twist or anything. It was just like, yeah, that sounds accurate to the little bit of knowledge that I have. But I did enjoy the kind of gothic, but not quite gothic, setting of this manor. Ken and her system are really going through it. They've been kicked out of like their residency or their school, so they have no job or education to work towards. They are evicted from their apartment, and one of the members in their system has decided to apply to a job to be a caretaker, or what's it called when you take care of the land? Caretaker of this old manor on like a cliff, and like very coastal, very good vibes. it's the atmosphere that I wish to read about constantly. But basically she takes this job knowing nothing about it, and they're trying to figure things out within their system, as well as figure out what's going on in the actual job and everything. We get to meet this girl Celeste, who also works on the property. We get to meet the family, and oh boy, is there a lot going on there. I did enjoy this. I would say that the critiques aren't wrong about the story. It is 70%. You are with the characters, you are learning about the system, you're learning about the people within the system, what's happened to them and why they are at the place that they are. And I did like it. I like these characters. It felt very fast paced. I listen to audiobooks at like 2.5 speed right now, so it didn't feel as long for me, and I didn't feel quite like this was dragging or anything, but eventually the synopsis I think gives away a lot, and once the synopsis starts to happen, you're 70% into the book. So it's definitely a lot of build up and leading up to the event. and then it resolves rather quick. It was thrilling. I love Alyssa Cole's writing. It just does something for me. The same author who wrote When No One Is Watching. It's just good stuff. I really enjoy it. I would overall recommend it if you're interested in it, but I did like it. So that was One of Us Knows. And the final thing that I read, which I am so back and forth on how I feel about it, but Witchcraft for Wayward Girls, which is a lot about pregnancy. Yeah. This is by Grady Hendrix, who is one of the few men in the thriller horror genre specifically that can write women. That doesn't make me want to gouge my eyes and ears out. He does it well. I appreciate the work that he puts in, the studying that he does, he probably does interviews and like talks to real life people, and I do appreciate the work that he does. I think he's a good author. I've enjoyed the works that I've read so far. I think my least favorite is The Book Club's Guide to Saying Vampires. That one's my least favorite, but this one I think falls in the middle for me. It wasn't a topic that I was super interested in. It's not very like witchcraft focused. It's not very fantastical. It's a study of, hello, sorry, I had to change my battery very quickly. It's very much about the 70s and having homes for young pregnant girls, teenagers, children who don't even understand how they end up in these situations because women aren't taught anything. It really focuses on like the historical context of what these homes were like and what society in general was kind of like, the purity of it all. And I did enjoy the commentary. I think that it really discussed the topic well. I think some people might have issues with the way Grady Hendrix is writing this, where maybe a woman should be writing it instead or whatever. I don't necessarily think that he's not like the right person. I think that he portrays these things well. I think that he's got good intentions. I think that the impact is good. So I don't know if I fully agree that like he shouldn't be writing these types of stories, but I didn't know a lot of the historical context going into it, so it's not something that I'm like educated on and knowledgeable about that I can really critique the little things. But I think the discussion of this was good. I think that this is a very good story for discussion and analysis. In terms of entertainment, in terms of enjoyment, I found myself a little bit bored at times. I didn't think, keep in mind, this is a long book. I don't even know if it needed to be quite this long for what it is, but also it's just not something I can really relate to. It's not like not pregnant, won't be pregnant. It's not in the cards for me. So it's hard to like read a book that's so like pregnancy and wanting to keep babies and blah 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 blah. It's not quite the stories for me, and so I couldn't really connect to the characters. But I don't think that it's necessarily about the characters so much as it's about the history. But I think this is more a historical book with horrific and fantastical elements. I think that the birthing scenes were, he did that and yeah, so, I mean, it was effective. It was an incredibly effective story, but it's not one that I was dying to finish. Like, if I put it down, I could have easily walked away. Like, if there wasn't a deadline, had to finish it before the live show, it would have taken me a lot longer to finish, but because Kayla had set a date for the Literally Dead book club live show, and I had friends that were going to be in it that I really wanted to support, so I had, like, a deadline. I was like, I gotta read it by then. So yeah, it was one that like I was able to pay attention to it. I wasn't, sometimes I'll listen to an audiobook at work and I go, ooh, I have missed the last 20 minutes because I was so distracted. Like, it kept me engaged and it kept my focus, but it wasn't one that I was like enjoying or having fun reading. So it was very much just like a middle book for me, but I don't know, it's hard because it's like I'm not necessarily the audience. I don't know if I would have picked this up if it weren't for the book club. So I don't know. I've got complex feelings towards this one because it's like, it's well written, it's got good historical context, it's talking about things well, but at the same time it's like not super fun. I was a little bored. The pregnancies were so I don't know, there's just a lot to it. But those were the things that I have read in the month of February, which honestly, like, with all things considered, is good. I don't think that 13 books is bad by any means. I think that's great. I think the issue with my standards right now towards myself is they weren't necessarily things that I was like wanting to read. Like, there are some books that I really want to read and I just haven't been able to because I'm so busy and it's hard to sit down and focus on a book. But I do have plans, hopefully, in March. I was about to say April. I wish in March that I would like to read. So very quickly, anything that was on my February TBR. Okay, can you stop that? Anything that was on my February TBR is still something I need to read. So we gotta work on those. Onyx Storm, A Language for Dragons, A Language of Dragons, Powerless, The Ashes and the Star-Cursed King. Lots of things that I still need to read. It's shameful for me, I think, actually. I'm currently making my way through... You don't need to see me, it's fine. I'm currently making my way through His Mortal Longings by Vanessa Lay. This I have an arc for, so I very much want to finish it this month before it comes out on the 18th, preferably. I would like to read some other things. Book club, Literally Dead book club live show will be end of March, early April for You're Fatally Invited. I'm very excited. I'm hoping this gives the writing retreat vibes, which I loved last year, I think. And then what else? I'm reading Golden Sun, like we talked about. I will also try to read Morning Star. So, Red Rising, going strong. We're going to get through it. It's exciting stuff. I am going to be doing a couple buddy reads. I want to finish Mask of Mirrors because I'm being a bad buddy read friend right now because I'm so busy. I also will be reading, what is it called? I have so many things on Libby that it's scary. Like, not great for me. I have 9 loads right now, and many things on hold that keep coming in. Oh, if I canceled my hold, I'm gonna cry. Okay, now, Such Lovely Skin is another buddy read that I'm planning to do. Battle of the Booktubers is happening, so I'm hoping I can knock 1 or 2 of those out this month just so that I can, be caught up. Lots and lots of reading will be happening. I am hoping to get a vlog or 2 out. I'm so, as you might have noticed, I have gone down to 1 upload a week right now just because I'm so busy that it's really hard to read and do a reading vlog, but also just, have time to film and edit. So I've gone down to once a week. I will be going back up to 2 hopefully soon, but for right now it's just I'm trying to be consistent enough so that you guys get something from me. But yes, I am hoping to get some vlogs that I've been sitting on for a while finished so that I can get some content out for you guys. I have a couple discussion videos that I've been scripting, which is crazy. I'm really excited about those. So yeah, lots of fun content. Stick around, subscribe, stay tuned. Like the video so that I don't care if you like. It's fine. You do what you want. You do whatever you want. I'm gonna go though because I think I yapped way longer than I meant to, and so sorry. I hope you had a great time with me. I hope that you had a great February and have an even better March, and I will see you guys in my next video, either Thursday or Sunday. Who knows at this current moment? I don't even know. So you'll know when I know. Bye.